Goldilocks Economy latest news. When the Union Budget 2026-27 was presented, a widely held belief was that India had entered a Goldilocks period, a phase where economic conditions are ideal: steady growth, low inflation, and low unemployment. This phrase, used by the RBI Governor Sanjay Malhotra, suggested that the Indian economy was well balanced and resilient. However, recent developments have challenged this optimism, triggering an important debate. Was India really in a Goldilocks phase, or was the economy weaker than projected? Recent developments. GDP calculation revision with a new base year, 2022-23, revealed that earlier estimates, base year 2011-12, had overstated GDP. Global geopolitical instability, especially the US-Iran conflict, raised concerns over oil prices and supply disruptions. The Indian rupee weakened further against the US dollar. Japan and the UK overtook India in nominal GDP rankings. Rising concerns of slower growth with higher inflation, stagflationary risks, emerged. Understanding the growth reality. Deceleration in nominal GDP growth. Key trends of nominal GDP, measures output at current prices, compounded annual growth rate, CAGR, is just above 10%, 2014 to 2026, while it is around 12.3%, 2004 to 2026, and 9.5%, 2019 to 2026. Interpretation: India's nominal GDP growth has steadily slowed over time, indicating weakening economic momentum. Moderate real GDP growth. Real GDP removes the impact of inflation and better reflects actual output growth. Key trends are a CAGR of above 12% since 2004, 6.2%, 2014 to 2026, and below 5.5%, 2019 to 2026. Interpretation: this growth rate is modest, especially for a developing country aspiring to become a developed nation by 2047. Why the Goldilocks narrative may be misleading. The base effect trap. A critical methodological caution: for example, cherry-picking post-COVID years distorts the true picture. The sharp rebound in 2021-22 and 2022-23 reflected recovery from the low base of the 2020 contraction, not genuine structural acceleration. Citing only these figures creates a false Goldilocks narrative, misleading both public discourse and policy making. Growth inadequacy for developed nation status. A real GDP growth rate of barely 5.5% over 7 years is insufficient for India to achieve Viksit Bharat, developed India, by 2047. Economists broadly agree that India needs sustained 8 to 9% real growth annually for such a transformation. Weak corporate earnings. Modest GDP growth has directly translated into underwhelming corporate earnings, reducing India's attractiveness to both domestic and foreign investors. Negative net FDI and rupee weakness. Net foreign direct investment, FDI, has turned negative, reflecting diminished investor confidence. The resultant capital outflow is a major structural reason for the rupee's depreciation. Notably, the rupee is weakening even as the dollar itself weakens against most global currencies, signaling an India-specific confidence deficit. GDP revision downgrades India's economic size. The new GDP series has effectively shrunk India's measured economy, meaning India is a smaller economy in absolute terms than previously believed. This is a significant setback to narratives around India's imminent rise to the world's third-largest economy. Energy import vulnerability. India's near-total dependence on energy imports via the Strait of Hormuz makes it acutely vulnerable to West Asian geopolitical instability, threatening both the current account and inflation management. Way forward. Structural reforms, targeting manufacturing competitiveness, labor markets, and land acquisition are urgently needed to meaningfully lift the sustainable growth rate. Improving the investment climate, through regulatory predictability and ease of doing business, EODB, is essential to reversing the negative FDI trend. Energy diversification. Accelerating the transition to renewables and diversifying import sources can reduce geopolitical exposure. Honest economic assessment by policymakers. Avoiding base effect-driven optimism is necessary for designing credible long-term strategy. Transparent GDP methodology and timely data revisions should be institutionalized to ensure policy decisions rest on accurate ground realities. Conclusion. The recent data suggests that India's economy may not have been in a true Goldilocks phase, but rather in a period where headline numbers mask deeper structural slowdowns. For India to realize its long-term ambitions, policymakers must move beyond celebratory narratives and undertake hard reforms that generate sustained growth, jobs, investment, and resilience. Only then can India transition from a large economy to a genuinely prosperous one.